granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello, I mentioned in a previous video that I had some theories about how the difference between Hebrew and Arabic shows up the difference between Israelis and Arabs, but also it has applications to Iran, and that's what I'm going to be concentrating on, at least at the beginning and end of this video. But in order to understand what I'm about, I'm afraid you're going to have to learn a little bit of Hebrew and a little bit of Arabic. Don't get afraid, it's only 3 or 4 words. I don't know, 3 or 4 words. It's only 3 or 4 words. But it's important that you understand what's going on with those words. So this won't be a video that you can just listen to while you're doing the washing up. You really will have to pay attention to the screen. I don't expect that this video will be very widely circulated for that reason, but I was asked to put forward this theory, so that's what I'm doing. Right, so I'll start by raising the question of why the Iranians are still not captured Muslim ideologues. I mean, they've been 47 years under a very strict Muslim regime. All the young people who have been so badly treated by the Islamic Republic, they all went through the Iranian school curriculum, which was heavily Muslim, wasn't it? They've spent their childhood listening to the national broadcaster. I'm quite sure that that was full of kiddie programs peddling the Muslim line. And there's also a substantial Arab population in Iran, you know, so there should have been that tendency. After all, there's a mullah in every street. You know, how was it Alfred, whose ambition was a chicken in every pot? Well, in Iran, it's a mosque at every corner. And still, the Persians, and I'm saying the Persians now for a reason, they think differently. Still, the Iranian government was different. The whole system of government was, as bad as it was, there were sort of more democratic principles which were held by the population despite the autocracy of the mullahs. And the Egyptians, the Libyans, the Moroccans, the Algerians, the Syrians, the Iraqis, very much the same in political and sociological views. But there is one huge difference. All of those countries I just mentioned before, they all speak Arabic. But the Iranians speak Farsi, which is not related even slightly to Arabic. Now, obviously, general discourse, there will be Arabic words in the mix, but that's not the language. And there were also older manuscripts and texts which would still be accessible in a way, would still have some sort of an influence, even if it wasn't direct. And I did wonder about that. I did wonder if that's the main reason, going back to George Orwell's idea that language directs the way you think. And maybe he was right. There's been a lot of arguments one way or the other, but that may be the reason the Iranians are not only rebelling against Islam, but stand a very good chance, if they succeed in this revolution, of actually establishing a workable democracy of a sort, where the other countries, the Arab countries, they never stood a chance. It's always been autocratic governments or nothing for Arabs, but not for Iranians. So now I'm going to leave Persian, Farsi, and the Iranians for a little while. And I'm going to talk about the difference between the Arabs and the Arabic language and the Hebrew language, because it's going to give you an idea of how language forms concepts that you take without even thinking about. They're part of your mental landscape. So in order to do that, I'm going to teach you a few basic rules of Semitic languages. And I keep saying, and I have to remind you, Farsi is not a Semitic language. So that's on one side for the time being. Just park Farsi out there on the side, and let's think of Hebrew and Arabic. Okay, so I'm going to put it up here, but I can't see it now. I'm going to have to put the text in later, so I'm not sure how well this will work. Let's start with the idea of the three-letter root, with some exceptions, but I'm not going into that. Every Semitic language works on every word having a three-letter root. 3 letters. And those 3 letters are like a code. When you've got these 3 letters in this combination of 3, it means a concept. That's its code for a particular concept. For instance, this is something you probably don't have to learn. We all know the word salam or shalom. That's salam is Arabic and shalom is Hebrew. And the root is SLM. And it's a root that has something to do with wholeness or completeness. The root itself doesn't mean peace. It means the sort of, wholeness or completeness. And of course, peace in the sense that there's nothing more to do. It's already okay, perfect. There's nothing more to add to it. So you have these 3 letters that make a root, and then you bolt bits onto the front and the back or in the middle to change the meaning slightly. But there's always, keep hitting the microphone, you're always embodying that little code in the middle, the 3 letters. For instance, changing the middle vowel in salam in Arabic, you can change it to salim, and that means safe. In the sense of safety, not the box you put money in, okay? And the word Islam, you see the I, the aleph at the beginning, and then the SLM, it still has that SLM root, but that bolt-on means submission. Because when you yield, that's it, you stop fighting, it's peace of a sort. And Muslim means someone who has submitted. When you see that M at the beginning of a Semitic word, of course, there are different words that start with M, but when you've got the 3-letter root with an M at the beginning, that usually means it's a thing made out of the 3-letter root, whatever the 3-letter root is. Those bolt-ons are very important, of course. Now, let's get to the bit I wanted to talk about. So we all know about salam and Muslim. That was just the intro. Now I'm going to give you 2 words with the root L, H, and M. I don't know what you'd call that H sound. It's a guttural. I'm saying H to make it more obvious. It's actually H. But it's a bit difficult to say while I'm talking English. Okay, now all of you know that word, El-H-M. It's from the place name Bethlehem. In Hebrew, Beit, house, Lehem, house of bread, because lehem means bread in Hebrew. Not so fast. Sort of means bread. I'll elaborate on that in a minute. Let's get back to that root. El Chem exists in both Hebrew and Arabic. In Hebrew, lehem nowadays means bread. In Arabic, lahm means meat. Now, think about that. You might at first consider that one has nothing to do with the other. But yeah, consider this. Perhaps that three-letter root isn't bread at all. Perhaps it's a concept. And the concept is basic foodstuff. Just your base food. Now, if you're a farmer, the basic food is grain, of course. And it's usually consumed as bread. If you're a nomad wandering in the desert, you're not going to be doing much cultivation, are you? Your basic foodstuff would be the meat of the goats you're herding. So the root el-ch-em actually doesn't mean bread or meat. What it means is that the concept is it's code for basic foodstuff. Which, just by the by, to my mind proves that the Hebrew language, which is actually a dialect of Canaanite, by the way, that Hebrew was spoken by farmers connected to the land who considered grain they had grown to be their basic foodstuff, whereas the Arabic language was spoken by people who moved around with herd animals, so their basic foodstuff was meat. Right, so that's lesson number 1 in the Semitic three-letter root. Is this making sense? I do hope so. I hope you're not too tired for the next one now. And that's the one I wanted to talk about as well. That's the root H-R-B. In Arabic, harb. In Hebrew, herib. Harb in Arabic is the word for war. That word exists in Hebrew as well, as I said, harb, but it's the word for sword. So you can see the two words embody this basic concept again. But whereas in Hebrew the word refers to the weapon, in Arabic it refers to what you do with the weapon. In both cases, though, it's the same basic concept, something that delivers violent death. Ch-r-b. Now, for the really interesting bit, the Hebrew word for war is not harab, as I said. Harab means the sword. The Hebrew word for war isn't even close to the Arabic word for war. In fact, it's got nothing to do with weapons at all. The Hebrew word for war is milchama. Now, you already know about the bolt-ons, don't you? So that mi bit at the beginning is a particle like the word m in Muslim. It makes an object out of a verb, or it makes a thing. So let's remove the m for the time being. And so you're left with ilchama. And that a is just a female ending, so we can shift that out of the way as well. Again, just for the time being. And what do we have left? Well, we have the three-letter root, which is our old friend lechem, lehem. In other words, the basic foodstuff. So in Hebrew, war isn't a concept bound up with weapons. It's a concept that has to do with basic food or resources. In other words, It's more to do with staying alive than it has to do with killing other people. Now, I'm not using that as any sort of a proof that Israelis are all pacifistic Buddhist monks, because they're not, very far from that. A war is a war. What I am talking about is the basic presumption behind the fighting. The Arabic word, by the way, for a sword is saif, which is also a man's name. And it's bound up with ideas of honour and strength and all the rest of it. Saif also exists in Hebrew, by the way. Now, back to the Persians. It's a bit of a stretch, I admit. But I do think it might be part of the reason that the Iranians, specifically the Persians, haven't fallen for the Muslim narrative the same way that the rest of the Middle East did. As I said, the Syrians, the Moroccans, the Egyptians, the Algerians, and all the others, they all adopted the Arabic language, and therefore, somewhere at the back of their minds, those basic concepts are rooted in there. But the Persians stuck to their own language. And their own language had the Zoroastrian ideas embedded within it. And because they weren't linguistically captured in the same way as the Moroccans, the Egyptians, the Syrians, and so on, I'd speculate that this is an element in their continued mental independence, their independence of thought. The independence of thought we see in Iranians magnificently, even after 50 years of attempted indoctrination. And I feel that it's because they weren't speaking Arabic. I think the mullahs made a big mistake by not forcing Arabic onto the population and allowed them to carry on speaking Farsi. That's my little theory of the difference between Middle East languages. I don't know anything about Farsi, so I couldn't bring that into my conversation. All I could do was talk about my knowledge of Arabic and Hebrew. I'll tell you what, when you've learnt Arabic, Hebrew's a doddle. Arabic is what you might call a grammar-rich language and caused me a lot of headaches. Okay, till next time, you can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.